Hi everybody, and welcome to another edition, this week's edition of First Person, our weekly interview segment, presented by the Buckeye Insurance Group here in Piqua and the Coverman Dickerson Agency representing the products of Buckeye Insurance in Troy, Piqua, and Covington. It is off season for football, but believe it or not, Bill Nees, just like 50 days until opening night on August the 24th, but yet it's been a busy year as we talk with the head coach of the Piqua Indians, Bill Nees, our guest this week. Several issues, three in particular, I want to talk about without actually talking about Piqua Indians football 2011. Appreciate your time. Competitive balance, the issue that was voted down recently, albeit narrowly, but I think 52-48 was the number on that. A controversial thing whereby a lot of people say this is what we need to do to make the game fair, to make the game the playing field, balance things such that everybody has a better chance of being competitive. No two coaches I've talked to have had exactly the same view. I'm going to ask you on the competitive balance, your issues with it and your concerns.
Well, I think in our situation, being a Division II team, wouldn't probably have a lot of effect on any of the things that are going on with us. I think it's more of an issue with the extreme ends of the schools, the extreme end of the extreme top of Division I. Right. And I think there was also a decent amount of issues with Division VI with some of the private schools, in that type of situation. So from my viewpoint, necessarily it doesn't affect us, but in terms of opinion, if you're in that situation, it's hard sometimes to be in a playoff atmosphere and know, because when we're in Division I, you kind of get to a certain point and then you hit the schools that have the 1,200 boys, that have the 1,100 boys. Now, not 1,200. I think 1,100 is the highest, or the mid-10s. But when you get to that point, all of a sudden you get into that area. And I think for some teams, they've got to realize, like Delphia St. John's coach, to me said it the best when he said, 3 years ago we were 0-10. And we're on a streak now, and all of a sudden everybody's saying we're doing something bad, we're doing something illegal, so forth and so on. I think people have to understand that things go in cycles sometimes. Now their thinking is that, yeah, that's going in cycles, but it's always the same type of teams that are winning. The Catholic school team. I think that's really the big issue people are talking about.
Does it concern you, and I made this point to Dan Ross, the commissioner of the OHSAA, a few weeks ago when we talked on this very interview, pertaining to, I'm an old athlete, you play. I didn't really care at that day. I always wanted to play the best competition. I wasn't interested in a watered down win or a watered down trophy. And I know that 2006 trophy that you won here in Division II, state champions, you wouldn't want that disparaged in any manner. Does that issue ever cross your mind pertaining to this business of free school lunches, traditions, penalizing school for their past success?
Yeah, I think what happened was they got too many ideas. The initial idea that everybody had a concern with was the fact that Catholic schools can go out to a broader area and do some things that public schools can't do, period.
You can use the R word.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes, the idea is that people just want to come to schools that are successful, yeah. And you're not necessarily, out advertising. Although, I guess a couple cases in Cleveland they weren't. But generally speaking, I think that was really the issue that was supposed to be talked about. And from there, when we get into the free and reduced lunches, where we get into all of a sudden now, if you're traditionally good, then that should be a punishment for you. Right. That's where they lost me. And that's where I don't understand what those variables have to do with anything.
In fact, of the coaches that I talked to around the area, almost unanimously said that's the one thing that I could not live with pertaining to the competitive balance issue.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I read that,
get theirs the same way we got ours.
Yeah, and to me that part of the deal made no sense to me.
Our guest this week is Bill Nees, the head football coach of the Piqua Indians. We'll take this break, come back, and talk about a couple more issues pertaining to high school football in the off-season on Press Pro's First Person, brought to you again by the Coverman Dickerson Agency in Troy, Piqua, and Covington.
The Coverman Dickerson Agency, with offices in Troy, Piqua, and Covington, is pleased to be the sponsoring Buckeye Insurance Group agent for this First Person interview. For farm, auto, and homeowner insurance, Coverman Dickerson is one of the area's fastest growing Buckeye providers. with a history of service and competitive rates. And we're also an outstanding source of coverage for families with young drivers. For farm, auto, and home policies, call the Coverman Dickerson Agency, proud to represent Buckeye Insurance Group.
Welcome back, everybody. This week's first person guest, Bill Nees, the head football coach at Piqua. Bill, I want to ask you about another issue that keeps coming up. I read more and more about it. I've written about it. That is the big issue of high school football as it's played in the manner passed down from Sunday to Saturday and now to Friday nights. We're talking head injuries, we're talking concussions. Every year you see more and more kids who seem like they miss not only football, but the Bittner kid, Jake Bittner over in Covington, missed basketball and baseball because of concussion issues. My concern would be, from what I've talked to some kids who say, you know, I'm going to play and I'm going to throw risks to the wind, because if I want to play at the next level, I got to prove to somebody who's recruiting that I have no fear on the football field, that I am willing to put my body on the line. This is what it's going to take to get me noticed to play on Saturday, maybe someday on Sunday. I don't know. I know you don't coach that. I know you guys coach form tackling and safety and do all the right things, but I guess the question is it a concern for you, one, and two, can you do enough as coaches here at Piqua and other schools, you know, to kind of fight that issue that's being passed down from Sunday to Saturday to Friday night?
Well, I think you can a little bit. I hope you can. And you know, one of the big things that we like to do is I'm a big believer in the fact that your mouth guard plays a big role. And I know it's a very elementary thing to start off with, but I think your mouth guard plays a big role in what happens to your head sometimes in terms of collisions. And you can't always be perfect in your head placement and everything. And not only that, sometimes you take a fall and you're going to get a whiplash effect down on the ground. But a lot of times, you know, you got to make sure that in every practice those guys have their mouth guards, and their full mouth guards, and they're in their mouth at the time. And you know, we kind of have a rule that everybody's got to have one hanging off their helmet before they go on the practice field. So I think that's where you start. From there, when a kid gets a head injury, you immediately say, boom, okay, if the trainer says you're done, you're done. You don't question it, you don't mess with it, one way or the other. If you got to sit a week, then you've got to sit a week, and there is no gray area about it, because I do not want a kid, I know I tell our kids that I'd rather have you sit a week and then you're fine than to sit the whole year. And you come back too early, or if you try to hide it from us, and you try to say, well, I'm all right, and you're not all right, and that's a tough one, because sometimes, you know, a kid thinks you want him to lie to you, and I got to portray the image or the message to that kid that I don't want you to lie to me. I don't want you playing if you're going to risk injuring yourself permanently. And if you can do that, continue to do that, then I think, you know, you can at least take steps in the right direction.
You've coached at Piqua for 20 years, and I'm going to ask you if we've crossed the threshold now where the game has gotten to the point where it is so physical, so fast,
yes,
getting faster. I mean, you play on artificial turf now that exponentially made Piqua football 20% faster as a home game. Have we crossed the threshold where, what's the right way to put this? There are no holes barred anymore in high school football.
Well, you're probably right, and as you were saying it, I was saying yes, 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 because in each case it's correct. On the parallel right with that is the equipment is trying to improve. You know, you're going from, you know, helmets that were suspension helmets that had this, to now double air bladders, a lighter helmet, which gives people the ability to keep their heads up and hopefully, you know, maintain that position where you're not striking with your head, you're also keeping your neck up and seeing what you're doing. I think those are some advantages. Again, going back to the mouthguard issue, when you used to buy a mouthguard for 99 cents, a little clear one, and you dip it in and go. We're looking at now double mouthguards. We're looking at mouthguards in the vicinity of in the neighborhood of $30. You know, which are encompassing, you know, both sides, still being able to breathe, and the entire, you know, aspect of it. So I think, yeah, the game's getting tougher. The weight room has really done that a lot. You know, people are getting bigger, people are getting faster.
Absolutely.
They're trying to keep the equipment up to date. But I don't know the equipment can keep up with, you know, the pace that this game is played now, because it's a wide open game now.
One of the other issues on the forefront of high school football right now is spring football in Ohio. I know the Ohio High School Football Coaches Association, the issue was voted down here recently this spring, but a lot of people say it's just a matter of time. Those guys usually get what they want. I'm sure there's a lot of people, and yourself included, that find good ideas about having spring football. There's other people, particularly in the smaller schools, that say, hey, look, you know, when do kids ever get a break from sports? And particularly in those Division 4, 5, and 6 schools where they have to share so many athletes. Your views on spring football?
I'm definitely in favor of spring football for one particular reason alone, and that is I think as football coaches we get enough time during the summer. I'm never hurting for time. You get 10 camp days, you can go out a couple times a day, you get your 2 and 3 days in August, so you're set. But if we could get a couple of just that 10 hours during the spring, what we could do is we could set up a kind of a unique system in terms of helping kids get better recruited. And I don't know if a number of people realize this, but most of our seniors spent the month of June going to college campuses, going to one-day camps. You know, you pay $25, you go drive up to Bowling Green, drive up to Toledo, run 40s, do agility drills, and basically get evaluated. And what is done in Florida, Texas, California is those people can now set up times where colleges can come to them. So now I can say, okay, now colleges, here's my schedule. You know, if you want to come and see our players, and some years they don't want to come and see our players because they don't think we have any players. Other years they do, and it's just that's just the way it is. But if you want to come and see us, we're working out this particular day. We could set a thing up where we would work out maybe from 4 to 5, 4 to 6. Vandalia might be able to do it, you know, X. Go down and, you know, Tip City, Troy, something like that, where the recruiters could hit it right down the line. So that's really my big thing, that to allow our kids to get a little bit better exposure to colleges and not have to break the bank by going out and traveling, you know, every day, paying $25, going out and doing this, and sometimes even missing our stuff.
Would you agree with me? There is no off season anymore in sports.
No,
I mean, there's always something.
Yeah, it's always something, and everybody's always looking to get the edge. And well, you know, it's like, I mean, I'm a history teacher, but going back to wars, I mean, they used to, you know, they'd break for Christmas and then start over again. I mean, there was breaks, and now, you know, there's obviously no break in the action, and you know, in some of the conflicts we have over the world, it's the same thing here. I mean, there's just no breaks. Somebody's always trying to, you know, get better at what they're doing.
Bill, appreciate your time. Best of luck in 2011.
Thank you.
All right, that wraps up this week's edition of First Person with Bill Nees, again presented by the Buckeye Insurance Group here in Piqua and the Coverman Dickerson Agency representing Buckeye in Troy, Piqua, and Covington. Stay tuned for the next edition of First Person. That'll be coming up in a week or so. We'll hope you will be with us then. And now for Coach Nees and our sponsors, thanks again for watching Press Pros Magazine and First Person.
If you are looking for quality insurance protection from a reliable company, sold by professionals in communities like yours, that's what you'll get from Buckeye Insurance Group.
Buckeye Insurance Group, insuring the heartland.
To find your local Buckeye agent, visit buckeye-ins.com. Buckeye Insurance Group, insuring the heartland.
Insuring the heartland.